Okay, hopefully you're getting sound now. Hello, can you confirm that we're getting sound now, Petra, please? Thank you. Okay, good. Thanks very much, guys. I'm sorry about that. I'm not sure how that happened. I'm running two machines, and I seem to have crossed over the sound a little bit. So, Martin, thank you very much. Lars, thank you. Kim, lots of you guys, thanks for letting me know. Now we will begin. So, welcome, guys. I'm really excited that you're here. This is a real fun event for me, and it's a real privilege for me. I'm very grateful for the technology, for example, that I can be sitting here at home in the Dominican Republic and connecting with so many of you from all around the world. So that's really exciting for me. Now, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping before we jump into the content here. First thing is, what this webinar is about is you achieving your health goals in 2015. And I am sort of uniquely positioned to give you some great both information and strategies for how to make that happen. So that's really what this webinar is about. And during the webinar, I am going to initially, for the first half or so, I'm going to present some content and information. And then also, we're going to have some Q&A. And there's two ways that we're going to do the Q&A. The one is, as many of you have already been commenting in the chat side, if you've got any questions, please post them into the chat side, and I will get to as many of them as possible. And also, the other way that you could interact in the second half is when I say, hey, I'm now looking for maybe some live interaction. In the chat window, in the very top bit, there's a pinned post. And that pinned post has a URL in it, and if you click that URL, it'll beam you into the webinar live. Now, please only do that if you're used to using Google Hangouts and you've got your camera set up and your sound right and all that kind of stuff. But if you're situated to do that and you'd like to be live on the webinar, then you can click that link and join us. In fact, we've already got Kurt and Naya in here live in the webinar room with us. So, with all of that said, let's jump in. As I've said earlier, I am particularly excited about this program, about this content. And for those of you who know me, let me do this another way. If you know me, you know me. If you don't, then generally speaking, I'm known as a business speaker or an entrepreneur. And but long before I got involved in doing any business speaking, I really sort of cut my teeth on speaking about health and nutrition. And the reason that I started doing that is that as a kid, I was not a very healthy kid. You know, especially as I got into my teens and early 20s. I was dealing with a huge variety of different ailments, some of which were maybe minor in retrospect, and some of which were actually pretty significant. And you know, for example, I was dealing with really sort of, I guess the best way to put it is painful acne. I had, you know, cystic acne through my neck, and to this day I have scars. That would be maybe in the minor camp. In the more major camp, I was dealing with nasal infections that had meant that I hadn't breathed through my own sinus passages in like a decade. I was allergic to everything. I would have stomach cramps that would shut down my capability to, you know, kind of do anything. I had throat infections that made it impossible at times to even swallow. It was just that's just how I lived. I was that kid who always had to have a tissue in my hand because I always had a runny nose. And what happened at that stage was, I've been visiting doctors and going to see, you know, specialists and getting pills and nasal sprays and injections and all kinds of different medical treatments and therapies to try to deal with these symptoms. And nothing was working for me. And right about at the end of my kind of final frustration with this, in fact, I shouldn't say nothing was working for me, because at one point, a doctor prescribed a pill that would absolutely help to clear up my face. And guess what? I took that pill. And the pill did totally clear up my face. But here's something that was really interesting and that I wouldn't recognize for another 4 or 5 years, is that while on that pill, I was restricted from eating certain foods. And what I would later learn is if I simply didn't eat those foods, regardless of the pill, the symptoms went away anyway. And so there's a number of things like that that happened when I kind of got into my early 20s, where finally I led to this point of total frustration. I went to the doctor and said, this has got to stop. I can't live like this anymore. And you know, the doctor recommended me to yet another specialist who took a look down my throat and said, oh my God, we have to take your tonsils out right now. They're a major cause of the immune problems you're having and the throat infections and nasal infections you're having and so on. And I was like, I'm in. If that's the problem, take him out. I was like, take him out right now. He's like, no, we have to, book a surgery, and it'll be about a month from now, and so on. So we booked the surgery out, and then during the month that I was waiting for that surgery, a friend of mine introduced me to a new thought. A friend of mine suggested, hey, you know what? You could make some dietary changes. You could eat less of this and eat more of that, and eat less of this and eat more of that. And I was like, this is ridiculous. I mean, I'm eating the way I've always eaten. I'm eating the way my parents taught me to eat, the way my school taught me to eat, the way the government taught me to eat. I don't see why I need to make a change at this point. And so I decided, though, that, well, what's 30 days, right? I mean, 30 days out of a lifetime, I can try for 30 days. And so I made some changes. And over the course of the next 30 days, I would lose about 35 pounds, which is, sort of 15 kilos or so. All of my symptoms would go away. I remember distinctly waking up after 2 weeks and recognizing that I could breathe through my sinuses for the first time in 10 years. I don't know if you've ever had like a cold or a flu where finally it breaks and you breathe through your own nose and how good that feels. Let me tell you, after 10 years, it feels really good. It's a little painful because all the tissues were off, but man, it felt good. And then also all my acne cleared up, and then something I wouldn't even realize for months is that all the huge stomach cramps and aches that I used to get, they went away. I didn't notice because it was like months later. I was like, wow, I haven't had those in a long time. And step by step, I began to realize that 1 month of changes to the way I was living eliminated all the symptoms that I was seeking help from medical experts for. And so one day my doctor called to confirm my surgery. Remember, I'm supposed to be having my tonsils out. And of course I said, look, I'm not doing that. The symptoms are gone. And the doctor's office was like, whoa, they'll be back. This happens quite often with people when they book a surgery. They get nervous, they said. And sometimes when they get nervous, it makes them, feel like maybe they should cancel the surgery. But if you cancel it now, it might be months before you could have another one. And then the symptoms would, it was this huge sales pitch. And at no point were they curious as to how I'd resolve the problem. And that made me curious. And that really got me on a journey. And that journey led me all over the world. I read countless books. I went and studied archaeology at the University of Bristol, and I got invited at one point to go and live with some Bushmen in Africa. And all of this was in a quest to answer one really important question. And that question is, what is the human diet? And that's a really important question because, you see, we humans are the only species that the word diet means temporary alteration to your normal eating pattern in order to fit into some outfit for whatever event or season. We're the only ones. In fact, that's not totally true because our pets can now go on diets too. Well, why do pets have to go on a diet? Well, because they're fat, because they're unhealthy. And so why I'm saying humans and pets are the only ones that can go on a diet is that in nature, we refer to an animal having a diet. Right? Get this, that in nature, an animal has a diet, humans go on a diet. I don't like the grammatical mess up of that. It doesn't make sense to me. And I noticed this, and I started asking some better questions, you see, because I do a lot of wildlife photography. I travel around Africa on a regular basis, and so I know quite a lot about African wildlife and nature conservation and that kind of stuff. And so it occurred to me, like if we take a look at the elephant, for example, the elephant has a diet. And the elephant's diet is to eat something like, say, 70 kilograms or 150 pounds of fresh bark and grass and plants every day, and to drink, 200 kilograms, I should say, and to drink about 70 liters of water every day. And that's roughly speaking the elephant's diet. There might be a few little refinements here and there. And if we were to take a look at the cheetah's diet, well, guess what? The cheetah likes to eat about 2.5 kilograms of fresh wild meat on a daily basis whenever possible. Obviously, it's not always successful hunting, but that's roughly what its diet is. And as I started looking at this, I began to realize that every organism on the planet has a diet. Every organism on the planet has a diet. In fact, the old Greek or even the old Latin words, the root words of diet, really mean way of life, not temporary alteration to the way you're living right now to achieve a short-term body size goal. right? It means way of life. And so for every animal on Earth, they have a diet. Not humans, though. Humans go on a diet. So then I started thinking, okay, now let's look at other comparisons between humans and animals in the wild. And it occurred to me that humans, pets, livestock, and animals in zoos are the sickest beings on Earth. They're the sickest beings on Earth. Animals in nature, I'm not saying they don't get sick, but it's not nearly as common as with us. I mean, think about this. Can you imagine what would happen if a gorilla got the flu for 2 weeks and couldn't forage for itself and take care? It would die. So in nature's not so forgiving, and so as a consequence, animals in the wild have evolved to live in balance as best they can with nature and to eat what they've evolved to eat and to be as healthy as possible. On the other hand, humans now are in a place where we're en masse, we're dying of things like heart disease and cancer and diabetes complications and other issues that are all related to lifestyle. And the other animals that are dying of those same diseases are pets. Pets now get diabetes and cancer and heart disease. Oh, and so do zoo animals. And what I'm really getting at here is that if every organism has a diet, it appears that when we take that organism, when we take an animal, and we take it out of nature and we put it in captivity, then it gets sick. And what does it get? Heart disease, cancer, diabetes, and so on. That's because we've taken it away from its natural diet. And so that brings me back to the question that I started this last little bit with, and that is, what is the human diet? And that became my quest. That became my journey. And as I said, I mean, this started for me in the early 90s, and I did tons and tons of research. I was extremely curious, and as I said, I got the opportunity on numerous occasions to go and hang out and often stay with proper hunter-gatherer bushmen in Africa to really get a glimpse of what life might have been like for us before agriculture and, of course, before buildings and mass farming and monocultures and Monsanto and so forth. And as a result of all that research, one day I wrote an essay, and the essay was called The Human Diet. And I started, speaking on the topic all over the world, and just really trying to help people to find a real sense of health. And that is to say that it's possible when people can return to the human diet, then they support their immune systems the best, they support their physiology the best, they support their weight the best. And so we got significant results with people, working with people on these principles over the years. I was always really impressed how easy it was for people to lose weight or to just have more energy or to be healthier in general. And what started happening is a lot of my clients started kind of referring me to their friends, and the next thing you know, I was at a place where it's like more people wanted my help than I had the capacity to provide that help. And so about 2 years ago, I really started to study how we could make this work for people as part of a system. And what I began to realize is that there are two core areas that we have to focus on to really help people. One of them is the content. And what I mean by the content is what's most important for you to eat and avoid in order for you to have maximum health. And then the second part of the sense is the context. It's like how do you change your behavior? How do you change the habits? So let's right now talk a little bit about the content. Let's talk a little bit about what is the human diet. So there's been a lot of debate about this, and of course there's a million fad diets out there. The Atkins diet and the GI diet and the South Beach diet and the this diet and the that diet. And I want to really make this point to you that is in itself a broken system. That there is a human diet, and while there might be subtle differences from one culture to another, and there certainly are some differences between men and women, ultimately humans are humans, and we have a diet, and as close as we can adhere to that diet, we're going to experience maximum health. So how do we do that? Well, one of the things we know about people is that we have largely lived in what we would call a plant-based lifestyle. That is to say that the easiest, most plentiful food for us to be able to gather was plant-based. So, of course, that meant eating lots and lots of plants. And something that we're pretty sure about at this stage from an anthropological or archaeological perspective is that people have traditionally eaten around 200 plant species in a year. In a normal year, people will eat around 200 different plant species. Just stop for a second and think about that. how many different plant species do you eat right now in a normal year? Or even just think about a week, how many? I have the privilege, of course, of doing these talks all over the world and polling audiences, and here's what I find. In America, people typically eat somewhere between 5 and 10 different plant species in a year, 10, not 200. And many people in America are able to boost their numbers up because recently the FDA in America decided that pizza counts as a vegetable. And so that way we can get that vegetable count up. Okay, let me be clear, pizza is not a vegetable. And so what we've got to take a look at here is one of the first areas is that people are seriously lacking in the quantity and variety of plant material, vegetables and fruits and that sort of stuff. So that's a really important distinction for us. And so one of the things that we can do immediately is to dramatically increase the quantity and also the variety of the plant-based foods that we eat. So when you go into the grocery store and you walk up and you see these vegetables that you've never seen before, you know, some people don't like trying new stuff. What I want to suggest is try it. I can tell you, 15 years ago, I think my mother to this day is still shocked that I preferably asked for kale and broccoli and Brussels sprouts and stuff like that. Because as a kid, that was not going to happen. I mean, even in my 20s, when I first started getting health conscious, I stuck with the core, the vegetables I knew and I was comfortable with. It was only when I started doing this research that I realized that there was an entire world of micronutrients that we're just not getting because we're not eating the variety of plants we eat. So now, when I go to the grocery store, I'm looking for both quantity and variety. And as a result of that, one of the things that we created is a couple of different smoothies that really help massively massively increase your intake of greens. Two of which are called the Alkagizer Mild and the Alkagizer. And I'll give you an opportunity to get those recipes from me later, but they're a fantastic way to massively increase the number of greens you're taking in a really yummy way without spending your whole day eating. Because really, honestly, to eat the quantity of vegetables that we would have eaten historically would take forever. Whereas if you get yourself a Vitamix and make some really nice smoothies, you can eat a phenomenal number of vegetables easily in a smoothie form. So that's one area that we know that really can massively begin to improve people's health. But let me back up for a second. Let me ask you another question. What do you think is more important, getting all of the right food or eliminating all of the wrong foods? Think about that, because you see so many diets focus on all the stuff you have to eliminate. And clearly, it would be helpful to eliminate certain things like processed foods and too much refined sugar and all that kind of stuff. But I'm asking you, if you could only do one thing to support your health, you had a choice. Increase dramatically the healthy foods you need or decrease dramatically the unhealthy foods you don't need. Which one do you think would be more important for you to create a really lasting and healthy lifestyle? And what I want to suggest to you is that eating all the foods you need is far more important than eliminating the unhealthy foods. I am not suggesting this as a license to eat unhealthy foods, not at all. What I'm suggesting, though, is that your body has certain nutritional requirements. And if it doesn't get those nutritional requirements, you're going to get sick whether you eat bad foods or not. Here's a good example. You might have studied in history when you were in school and learned about the sailors that were traveling across the Atlantic to come to the New World, and they would get scurvy, right? They'd get sores on their skin. And what was later determined is that they were getting that scurvy as a result of a vitamin C deficiency. So in other words, they were getting sick because of not getting something they needed. Not because of something negative or unhealthy they were eating, but rather because there was something they were missing. And so the first step in having the very best, most healthful 2015 you can ever imagine is to get all the nutrients that your body needs by increasing the quantity and variety of fruits and vegetables that you eat. In fact, one of my favorite expressions and one of the principles of our WildFit program is that fruits and vegetables don't fight disease. The absence of them cause or contribute to disease. Fruits and vegetables don't fight disease. It's the absence of them that cause or contribute to the development of disease. And so, once again, what's far more important than eliminating stuff that's maybe bad for you or unhealthy is getting everything in that you need. So let's go back. We said we got to increase the quantity and variety of vegetables and fruits. Well, what else do humans need? Now, this is a controversial statement I'm about to make, but I want to make it anyway. And I want to kind of almost apologize in advance if some of you come from the sort of vegetarian or vegan camp, because one of the things that's really clear about humans is that we are omnivores. Our evolutionary history is omnivorous. Now, that does not mean we are supposed to eat meat every day or 3 meals a day, as so many people do. In fact, it's quite possible that looking at a number of different sort of historical factors and nutritional factors, that we could get by on 1/10 of the meat, or even less of the meat that many people are eating. There are 2 big problems with the way people eat meat these days. One is that they eat, generally speaking, quite unhealthy meat. In other words, they're eating beef from feedlots where the beef is being packed full of hormones and antibiotics, and the animals are never getting a chance to exercise, and they're being fed foods that are not their natural diet. So as a consequence, you're producing very low quality meat. Oh, and not to mention that the meat is unbelievably full of fat compared to the meat that we've eaten on an evolutionary basis, which would be much lower fat meat. And for example, venison or bison or buffalo or something along those lines. And so we are clearly omnivores. And so what that means is that if we are going to eat meat, what we want to do is really make sure that we get the very best quality that we can. And maybe venison or buffalo or elk or moose are not practical for you. I will tell you that if you live in Canada, America, or England, then you should be able to go to a Whole Foods and get ostrich or bison meat fairly easily. And if you live in Northern Europe, where I know many of you are from because I've seen the logins here, then it's going to be really simple for you because you can definitely get elk and moose and other wild meat there. And I notice a lot of you guys have come in from South Africa as well. That is real easy because the butchers there quite often have meat right out of the bush from there. And you can have eland and springbok and impala and kudu and so forth. So what I want to suggest is that we do need a certain amount of animal protein in our diet as omnivores, but what we want to do is make sure that we are getting the very best quality that we possibly can. And so, for example, if you are going to get beef, guess what? Free-range organic is going to be significantly better than feedlot beef. And so if we focus our efforts on getting the right amount of plant material, in other words, the widest variety and a much increased quantity of fruits and vegetables, and we focus on getting the occasional high-quality protein that we evolved to eat, we're going to satisfy a significant amount of our nutritional requirements right then. Of course, there's some other considerations, because here's what's really fascinating. Far more important than food is water. Now, what I mean by far more important than food is water is, think about this. How long can you live without food? Well, you can live without food for weeks, sometimes even months, right? You can. I'm not suggesting it would be pleasant, but you can survive it, right? How long can you live without water? Well, we're down to days, right? And so it's really, really important that we make sure that we're well hydrated. And I'll tell you something, that is not just about drinking water. In fact, it is entirely possible to drink too much water, especially if you drink distilled water. Then you can get yourself overhydrated, right? So what you want to do is make sure that you're well hydrated, first of all, by eating plenty of water-rich foods. Water-rich foods, guess what? Fruits and vegetables, water-rich foods. And then also smoothies and juices that have water in them. And then, of course, as healthy and clean and natural water as you can get. But wait a second, there's something even more important than water. What's that? Well, again, how long can we live without food? Weeks or months? Again, maybe not comfortable, but we can make it happen. How long can we live without water? Well, we're down to days. What about air? How long can we live without air? Minutes. And so air becomes one of the, well, not one of the, it becomes the single most important aspect of any kind of health. And just like most people around the world right now are just a little bit or a lot dehydrated, most people are also running without really fully oxygenating their entire body. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about this because it's absolutely key to a great 2015. And that is that you do things that inspire your diaphragm and inspire your lungs to breathe properly. So let's talk a little bit about the lungs. It appears that they're not designed very well. Here's what I mean by that. It appears that they're not designed very well because the little hairs that are in the lungs that are there to extract oxygen are far more densely populated in the lower part of the lungs than they are in the upper part of the lungs. This seems to me to look a bit like a design flaw, because most people breathe up here a lot. They breathe shallow, especially when they're talking, or if they start getting stressed out, they breathe up here a lot. If you watch most people sitting at their desk working, they breathe up in the upper part of their chest. So their air is cycling mostly in the upper part of their chest, in the part of the lungs that are not that good at extracting the oxygen from the air. Whereas, when somebody takes a really deep diaphragmatic breath and fills their entire lung cavity, then, in fact, it can make you a little dizzy as you get flooded with all the oxygen, right? Because you've really brought the oxygen down into the part of your lungs that are so very good at extracting air from your lungs. So there are two ways to make absolutely sure that you're getting yourself fully oxygenated and allowing your blood to be fully oxygenated to make sure all of your organs are fully oxygenated. And that is, one, to do some exercise, like exercise that gets your heart rate up and gets you kind of breathing a little bit heavier. You know, you can go for nice brisk walks or light jogs. This is not about weightlifting and that sort of stuff. This is about aerobic exercise. But I don't even mean aerobics. In fact, most aerobics in gyms are not aerobic. Aerobic means with oxygen. And most people that are doing aerobics are like barely able to talk. They're so out of breath. You want to do things that inspire deep breathing, yoga, deep stretching, nice walks, walking in the hills, that sort of stuff. That's the first strategy. The second strategy is to breathe deeply, just to physically do it. You know, like just make a note, like put a little post-it note on your computer, or set an alarm, or get yourself an app, or do something that inspires you, say 3, 4, 5 times a day, to just stop and take 10 really nice deep breaths and let them out. And when you do that, you'll find that you immediately relax a great deal. You see, breathing up here is a stressful activity, and it inspires the production of adrenaline. Breathing down here communicates to your whole body that everything is okay, because you only in nature would have had a chance to stop and breathe very deeply when everything was okay. And so when you do that, it communicates to your body, hey, everything's okay, it's okay to relax, the muscles are relaxed, the heart relaxes, and the whole body relaxes. And as a result of all that, oxygen flows through your body so much better. So all of these are things that you can do to dramatically increase your feeling of health in the following year. And now let's move to the next part, because are there some things you could stop doing that would help? Yes. Part one is way more important. It's absolutely more important to do all of that stuff than part two. Part two is really about eliminating things which are going to fight your body. They're going to make your body a little bit harder. So let's talk about some of the things that are just not in the human diet. And the way we can figure this out is really simple. You know, our evolution as a species is something that's been going on for, you know, millions of years. If we were to, say, arbitrarily set the clock, say, 5 or 6 million years ago, when the earliest hominids, the earliest kind of upright apes sort of began the human evolution game, if we set the clock back then, and we say that that's our evolution over a, say, 5 million year period, and then we correlate that to a 50-year-old person, then we can start to put some things in perspective. So, for example, at what point in human history did we start having wheat? Well, about, say, 10 or 15,000 years ago. So that sounds like a long time. I mean, I see these people out there with diet programs that talk about ancient dietary principles from the Bible. Okay, that's not ancient. That's not ancient at all. That's 2,000 years ago. And let's be really clear about that. It wasn't even written 2,000 years ago. It was written more recently than that. And we're really talking about a 5 million year clock against a 2,000 year blip. In other words, in the life of that 50-year-old person, the Bible was written, 10 seconds ago. So that's not ancient dietary principles. Ancient dietary principles are the way people evolved. It's our entire history as a species. And so that means that we can kind of take a look and say, wow, anything that we've introduced really recently, our digestive system, our teeth, our bodies have not figured out how to deal with those things. In other words, they're not food for us. I want to give you a great example of this. there's a nice wooden table here in front of me. It's wood. That means that it's organic material. So that means that it has vitamins and minerals in it. But my question is, are any of those vitamins or minerals bioavailable to me? Like, could I take a bite out of this table and get vitamins and minerals from it? Well, first of all, I don't have the dental structure to bite into this table, right? I'm not a beaver. I don't have the dental structure to gnaw at this table. Well, okay, I could cut a piece of the table off, and I could go and put it in my blender, put it in my Vitamix, and, you know, add a little coconut water to give it some fluid, blend it all up, and I'd have a wood smoothie. And if I were to drink that wood smoothie, could my body extract the vitamins and minerals from it? No, because just like I don't have the teeth of a beaver, I also don't have the digestive system of a beaver. In other words, I can't extract the vitamins and minerals, no matter that they're there. Your teachers, when you were in school, probably used chalk on the chalkboard, full of calcium. Why not eat that? Because it's not bioavailable to you in that form. And so what that means is that we first focus on getting our maximum nutritional intake from foods that we evolved to eat. Then we do the best we can to remove or at least dramatically reduce foods that we did not evolve to eat, because all they are is flavor, all they are is toxin, all they are is stuff that our body has to expel in some way and use energy to expel. And so some of the things that we might want to remove or dramatically reduce, for example, wheat. I used it earlier. We've only been eating wheat for 10 or 15,000 years. Now, some of you may be going, well, that's great. I'm gluten intolerant. I'm really glad that we should give up wheat. Yeah, well, what I want to suggest to you is that, frankly, wheat is not part of the human diet. It's a brand new thing that humans only recently started eating purely because we can extract calories from it and prevent people from starving with it. But we're not going to get all the vitamins and minerals we need when we eat it. And so, as a consequence, it's not good for us. It requires a significant amount of energy to process it, and wheat we're going to have another conversation, another day, another webinar all about wheat and what it does to the digestive system. But just short version, consider this, that wheat is all about, it's a seed, and it's all about being eaten, transported, ejected, and so it can grow up and become a plant. Well, in order for that to work, it doesn't want to be digested. And so wheat does everything it can to not get digested. Think about that. That's what gluten is all about. That's what all the enzyme blockers and hormone triggers that are in wheat and in seeds in general are all about. They're designed to make it really difficult to digest the seed so that the seed can pass through you and still become a plant. And so as a consequence of this, it makes digestion really difficult. And so some people that have IBS or the celiacs or other people that are gluten intolerant, they feel like, well, it's me, I'm broken. No, you're not broken. You're a Homo sapien. you're normal. And just about everybody is probably a little gluten intolerant in some ways, just some more than others. But just because somebody is not gluten intolerant doesn't mean that gluten is a good idea for them. And so one of the things that you can dramatically do to improve your health in 2015 is to really reduce, or even if you've got it in you, eliminate the intake of wheat and grain products like wheat. Let's move on to another example. Let's talk about one of my favorites, and that is dairy products. Okay, now when did humans start having dairy products? Well, we're not 100% certain, but we know that it's not any later than about 10 or 12,000 years ago. In fact, if I remember correctly, the earliest evidence of milk proteins on pottery, from an archaeological perspective, date back to, I want to say, 6,000 or 7,000 years ago. If I remember correctly, it was a guy named, I think he was Paul Evershed from the University of Liverpool, who made this discovery, and it's kind of the earliest evidence of humans eating dairy products. And so that's like the earliest evidence of it. So let's say it's in the last 10, 15,000 years. Well, again, remember, that sounds ancient. According to the people that have ancient diets based on the Egyptians, or ancient diets based on the Bible, 10 or 15,000 years is an eternity. But when you think in evolutionary terms, it's a blip. It was 5 seconds ago. 5 seconds ago. And that's why it's so not functional for us today. The highest milk drinking countries in the world also happen to have the highest level of osteoporosis in the world, which is totally against what they're telling us, because in theory, the more milk you drink, the more calcium you're getting. Well, no, because if that were true, why would the highest milk drinking countries in the world be having the highest level of osteoporosis in the world? Absolutely, what you want to do to have strong bones is stop drinking milk, because guess what? Just like the beaver can get the vitamins and minerals out of wood and you can't, a baby cow can extract all the calcium and unbelievably packed hormones and fats that are in dairy milk that were evolved specifically for the cow, for the calf. Just like the calf can extract those things, the beaver can extract them from wood, but you can't take vitamins and minerals out of the wood, and you can't take the vitamins and minerals out of dairy milk. In fact, you're not even supposed to be having human milk at this stage. Once your teeth came in, that was kind of supposed to stop. Here's what's really funny. This always blows me away. There's a ice cream place in England, in London, that serves ice cream made from human milk. I'm not kidding. In fact, there's a restaurant in Switzerland that I read about, and they say that close to 70% of the dairy products, of the milk products that they serve in their restaurant, are made from human milk. Now, what's really fascinating about this, I want you to just think about this. What was your reaction to hearing that if you hadn't heard it before? Because here's why I find this fascinating. I say this to audiences, live audiences all over the world. I've spoken in over 20 countries around the world, and I say this to the audience. And I go, yeah, and they make ice cream made from human milk, and these are the common reactions. Ugh, gross, ick, ugh. These are the reactions I get from people. Now, I want you to think about this. What kind of brainwashing do you think it would take to get people to think that milk from humans is gross, but milk from cows is somehow okay? When you consider that the milk from cows, it has an abnormally high fecal matter count in it, well, consider where the udder is related to. I don't even think about that. And that in America, 1 in 5 cows has mastitis. By the way, antibiotic-resistant mastitis. In other words, an infection of the udder that means that there's constantly blood and pus flow inside the udder, which necessitated them having to apply for an increased white blood cell count in milk production. In other words, they needed to get permission to produce milk with more pus in it. Guys, I want to tell you something. Milk, even if it's organic and perfectly produced in every possible way, is not part of the human diet. Just not part of the human diet. Milk, produced the way it's produced these days in feedlots, is absolutely not part of the human diet. It's absolutely atrocious for the human body. And also, in my opinion, energetically, it is the worst possible way to treat an animal. I'm often intrigued when I bump into friends of mine or I meet people in audiences or what have you, and they're vegetarians for animal rights reasons, but they're not vegan because they have some dairy products. And I go, well, wait a minute, you're a vegetarian for animal rights reasons, which I'm all for that. I get it. I totally get it. I love the idea of it. But wait a second now. If somebody's a vegetarian for animal rights reasons and they still have dairy products, let's think a little bit about that. If you had to be reincarnated and you had to become a beef cow or a dairy cow, which do you think you'd rather be? You see, because a beef cow is going to get born, it's going to get raised, it's going to get fattened up, and then one day somebody's going to come along and kill it and serve it as beef. A dairy cow is going to be artificially inseminated. Okay, let's think about that from a experience perspective. Then it's going to give birth to its calf. They're going to take the calf away because they want the milk, not the calf. They're going to take the calf away, and then they're going to use all kinds of chemicals and hormones to trick the cow into constantly producing milk on a machine for the rest of its life. I'm going with that's a significantly worse quality of life than the beef cow. And so from an animal rights perspective as well, dairy to me is just an unconscionable idea of a food. So again, we already talked about what we can improve and increase to have a better 2050. Eat dairy products. I'm not going to have a long conversation about processed foods. If we have to have that conversation, guys, if it came in a can or if it came in a package and you can't read the ingredients on the package because they're unpronounceable, probably it's not part of the human diet. I hope that makes sense to you. And now I want to talk about one more thing, especially for those of you who are interested in weight loss. And even if you guys are not interested in weight loss, this is very fascinating from a metabolism perspective. This is a way to make sure that you have significantly more energy. It's a way to make sure that you don't get the 4 o'clock crashing of energy in the day. And it's also a way to really trigger weight loss in your body. And that is to recognize something really fascinating about food. And that is that we already right now think of food as nutrients, vitamins, minerals, energy, fiber, and maybe some toxins and roughage that your body has to process. And that's basically what food is. But what most people are not talking about these days is that food, many foods, are something else. And that is that they are messages. In other words, when you eat some food, your body makes certain deductions about the environment based on the foods you're eating. Let me say this in another way. Think about, when does fruit ripen? Fruit comes up onto the tree and it begins to ripen. And then what will happen is that when you're eating that fruit, your body is going to be taking a look and going, wow, fruit tends to ripen in the fall, and in late summer and early fall, which means winter is coming next. Just like chipmunks and squirrels learn to hoard nuts for the winter, our bodies do something very similar. When you eat sugar, and any sugar, and your pancreas starts producing insulin, that sends a signal to your body that winter is coming. And as long as your body thinks winter is coming, it's going to store fat and not release fat, which is going to make weight loss impossible. In fact, what a lot of people will then do is go on a calorie restriction diet. I'll eat less food. Well, now your body goes, oh my God, less food. Winter must now be here. It's not coming, it's here. And so now let's not release any fat, because in order for us to survive the winter, we need to hold on to that fat. And so as a consequence, it makes weight loss a really tricky game. And that's why the vast majority of people that go on a diet, right, a temporary alteration, whatever, when they go on a diet, the vast majority of people gain weight. And the reason is that they do things on that diet that specifically tell their body not to lose weight, no matter how little food they're eating. In fact, the less food they eat, the more the body wants to hold on. And so if weight loss is one of your goals for 2015, what I want to suggest to you is that a total absence of sugar in your diet for a period of time will absolutely help and support your body in the weight loss process. So with that said, I want to show you guys some pretty cool stuff, and I'm ready to take some questions. So I've got some people that are in here live. I see Jen and Kurt and Naya and Petra are in here, and I'm going to scroll in here and see. Yeah, okay. So if you pop any questions in the chat window, I'll answer them. Oh, it's not probably Jen. Looking at your last name, it's probably Jan. So Jan, yes, we will have a recorded version of the webinar. If you've registered in for this, the system will email you a link to the recorded version of the webinar, so you're going to get that. Now, a couple of things I want to show you. You guys go over to the slide. I think that's probably on the leftmost part of your screen, and you'll see there's some slides there. If you click on it, I think it'll make it large and you can see it. Right now, it should say the health revolution. So if you click on that, and let me get to my screen here. I want to show you, first of all, this photograph, which is a photograph of one of the Bushmen that we visited with when we were in Africa. And I just want you to take a look at him for a minute, because I want you to know we're not 100% how old this guy is. We're not 100% how old. But what we do know is that he's probably in his late 40s. And we don't know how old he is because, you know, frankly, what happens is that they don't really keep sort of birth records and all that kind of stuff. So we're not 100% sure. But we assume that he's in his late 40s. I learned this from our guides in the area. Bearing in mind that he's in his late 40s, please take a look at the musculature in his back and in his arms. I want you to understand that he has never been in a gym in his life. He's been in nature. And he has unbelievably beautifully formed muscles. Now, I want to use those muscles as an example of something else, because not only do his muscles look like that, but internally, he also is unbelievably healthy, because he lives in nature where he is forced to eat what nature provides, which is, of course, a great deal of plant material and the highest quality protein available. In other words, there's never a moment where he's eating a piece of beef that's 40% fat. He's eating animals that are sub 4% fat. And so when you look at his muscles, I want you to know that they are demonstrative of his overall health. And yet he's never been on a diet. He's never taken supplements. And that's what his body looks like. And so what I want you guys to get is that we're in a place right now where our current health, for those of you that might be dealing with weight issues, or especially if you're in that, like, you know, on diabetes watch, type 2 diabetic, or approaching it, or if you're just not feeling your energy, or you just don't feel like you're good at making your own food choices, what I want you to know is it's totally not your fault. I mean this, like, with sincerity. It's totally not your fault. You know, when I was a kid, I was like every other kid. If we had a kid in our class that was overweight, we'd kind of tease them. We thought it was their fault. They were greedy. Not at all. What we've now begun to realize is that we have instincts, and those instincts were designed to help us avoid starvation. They were designed to help us avoid starvation. Starvation in the past was the #1 cause of death of people. And so as a result, we have evolved the unbelievable power and skill and physiology to avoid starving, which means we can eat more than we need to eat. It means that we have cravings beyond what our hunger needs are, because we might need to be preparing for winter. And so we have instincts that will actually make us overeat because food was so rare. And then we take all that software, all those instincts, and we move it into the present, and it doesn't support us anymore. And so now we have this abundance of food around us with instincts designed to prevent us from starving. And as a consequence, most of us eat far more food than we need to eat. And most of us eat many of the wrong kinds of foods. And it's all because our instincts evolved in a time when those foods weren't around. I'll give you the most perfect example. When fruit comes into season, it's a temporary thing. The fruit comes into season, and it's only there for a short time, and then it's gone. And you would miss it, believe me. I mean, if it's 200,000 years ago and we are all out for our walk in the bush and we stumble upon a bush and it's got lots of yummy, sweet fruit on it, we're going to eat all of it. We're going to love it. And then when it's gone, we're going to lament it, and we're going to miss it, and we're going to talk about it, and we're going to write songs about it. And then we're going to wait months before we ever get to see it again. The problem is now is that fruit, and I don't mean fruit, I mean sugar, is so readily available that I doubt that any of you, I think the odds are, out of the whatever 100 people that are watching this webinar, the odds are that less than 1% of you have gone even a day without activating your pancreas in the last year, without producing insulin to break down some form of sugar in the last year. And the reason being is that sugar is in everything now. Sugar is in 80% of the food that is produced in the U.S. market. And get this, I said to my wife last year, no, about 3 years ago, I said to my wife I'd found some really powerful statistics about health that really blew me away. And I said to her that I found out that Americans, the average American eats 154 pounds of sugar, 75 kilograms of sugar every year. She said, that can't be right. That's like a good-sized person in weight of sugar every year. That can't be right. And then I said, another statistic I read said that if you are obese, then that is 7 times more dangerous than smoking. 7 times more dangerous than smoking. And she said, no, if that was true, it would be on the headlines of every newspaper. That can't be right. And I said, think about it. Occasionally, walking around the streets of any major city, you will see old people smoking. You'll see somebody in their 70s or 80s smoking. You will almost never see somebody in their 70s or 80s that's heavily obese. They don't make it. They don't get that far. And so I gave her these statistics, and what was really fascinating is about 2 weeks later, I was doing a talk in London, England, and I had to follow President Bill Clinton. And while President Clinton was doing his talk, he had some Q&A with the audience. And someone in the audience, we were sitting right down there, second or third row, there's Bill Clinton up on the stage, and I'm getting ready to go up right after him, and then a person in the audience asks, President Clinton, what do you think some of the most dangerous things that we have to think about right now are? And he said, one of the biggest troubles facing America right now today is that the average American eats 154 pounds of sugar a year, and that obesity is 7 times more dangerous than smoking. And my wife just looked at me and was like, oh, look, the president's taking your material. We obviously just read the same research. But the fact is, when I say that it's not your fault, here's why. Sugar makes you hungry. The point of sugar is to make you hungry. Because that way, when you get to the fruit tree and you eat a little bit of fruit, it will trigger you to eat more fruit and trigger you to eat more fruit. And that way, you'll be ready for the winter. So the problem now is that sugar's in everything. So when you eat sugar, it makes you more hungry again. And that's why the food manufacturers keep putting sugar in everything, because it will make you eat more food, and that's good for their shareholders. It's good for profitability. And so if you sometimes find yourself having a hard time making food decisions, what I want you to know is it's not your fault. You can change it. You can take responsibility once you know this. But right now what's going on is food manufacturers are taking your basic instincts as a human being and designing marketing campaigns that are designed to manipulate your nervous system. They're designed to make you eat when you're not hungry, and they're designed to make you eat foods that are not supportive of your health. And so I really want you to get that it's not your fault. Now, I want to give you an example, if you commit to this, of what you can do in 90 days. I want to show you what you can do for your body in 90 days. Now, I'm going to use an example of weight loss here, and I know for many of you, weight loss is not the major goal. And I know it's not. I want you to understand something, though. Weight is just one measurement of health. So you might not want to lose weight, but you might feel like your energy's not as high as it could be, or you're not sleeping as well or as you could be, or you get sick more often than you'd like, or you get headaches from time to time, or your sex drive isn't what it used to be, or any number of different things. And what I want you to know is all of those things are influenced by how naturally healthy you are. In other words, what your lifestyle is. And so weight is a nice visual representation of what you can do when you get your health on track. So I'm going to give you an example that shows weight loss because it just gives you an example of how dramatically you can improve your health. But I want you to know that when you see these before and after images, that they're not just demonstrating the gains that you can make from a weight loss perspective, they're demonstrating the gains you can make in any aspect of health. And so I want to introduce you to one of our clients. Again, this is in the screen that has the slides up. So if you, I hope that that's what's displaying when you click on it. If you click over onto, there we go, onto the one that's actually marked Elise. If you, now, here it goes. I want to introduce you to Kurt. Kurt, who's actually live on the webinar. So we're going to talk to Kurt in a minute. I didn't know Kurt was joining us, so that's absolutely fantastic. So if we click over to Kurt, here he is, loading up, and there he is. So this is Kurt. And Kurt's a great guy. He's got a great family, he's a hard worker, he's an entrepreneur, he's committed. And he originally came to me as a business client. He was doing our business freedom programs, and he went through our business freedom boardroom coaching and all this sort of stuff. And so as he started developing more business freedom in his life, he started becoming interested in focusing on his health. And so he came to us and learned about WildFit. In fact, he did our WildFit challenge. And in 90 days, I want you to get this, this is the change that he was able to create. Here it comes. That's Kurt before the WildFit challenge, and this is Kurt after. That's 3 months of change. 3 months. And just so you can kind of, it's sometimes hard to remember the original image, I'll put them side by side so you really get a sense. This is the same guy 3 months apart. The guy on the left clearly looks, what, 15 years older than the guy on the right. It's a completely different lifestyle situation. This is a person who has extended their life probably by 10, 15, 20, maybe 30 years. And of course, there's a whole realm of other lifestyle implications that take place when he makes these changes. And we're lucky enough that he joined us here. So I guess you got, let's actually meet Kurt. Kurt, can you unmute yourself and maybe just say hello first?
Hello, my name is Gert Loide, living in Stockholm.
A little quiet for us, but maybe,
okay.
Get a little closer maybe.
Do you hear now?
Much better, I think, yeah.
Okay. My name is Gert Loide, I'm living in Stockholm from Estonia. And by Eric help, I lost couple of kilos, yeah, exactly. I started, I was 115. And right now I'm 92. I feel excellent, and it was easy program. And what is most important, after program finished, I didn't want to stop that lifestyle. So yeah, it's fun. So I feel very energized. So thank you, Eric.
Kurt, thanks so much for joining us today. I didn't know you were going to be there, so I really appreciate it. I think it's really impactful for people to see the impact that it's having on life. A couple things that are interesting for Kurt and interesting for the way we develop this is that in order for Kurt to kind of achieve what he wanted to achieve from a health perspective, he was going to have to dramatically increase some of the healthy foods that he needed, but he was also going to have to dramatically decrease some of the foods that were not so functional for his health. And the beauty is that the way we constructed our programs is that he was able to eliminate those foods without missing them, without being hungry, without difficulty, without lots of withdrawal and all that kind of stuff. And that's a really key thing. So I want to give you guys some strategies for what you can specifically do to create lasting change. And then I also want to give you the opportunity to maybe do that with us. So once again, over where I had the pictures of Kurt, let me, here we go. Okay, maybe not. All right, I think my sound is back. So if you can look over at the screen that we've got up there where it says keys to lasting change. So the key thing here with these keys to lasting change are, and this is really to help you create a structure that can help you create what you want from 2015. So the first thing is this: between now and say December 31st, get clear on what it is you want from your health in 2015. Know what you want. So give some thought to what would life be like if you really had the health that you really wanted. What would your sleep be like? What would your energy be like? How would it change your day? How would it change your level of energy? How much sleep would you need or not need? Really, what would your natural weight be? How much exercise might you do or not do? So I want you to really, between now and December 31st, think a lot about what it is that you want from your health in 2015. Then, item number 2, know what you are getting. And this is really key because you see what happens for so many people is that they have an idea of what they want. They decide on December 31st, this is what I want, but by January 2nd, they've already kind of blown it. And they haven't even really noticed they've blown it because they're not measuring what they're getting. And so the more often you measure this stuff, the more likely you are to create the lasting improvement you want. Item number 3, develop or model great strategies. In other words, don't do this on your own. Find people around you, like Kurt. Reach out to Kurt. You can find people who have done the WildFit Challenge, who have created phenomenal results in their own life. And as a consequence, they will have strategies that can help you to make this work. And when you figure out what their strategies are, really follow them. Like when somebody has done something to get the result you want, be willing. When my friend came to me and said, hey, you got to, for 30 days, you got to make some changes. I was like, 30 days without pizza? Pizza was one of the foods he wanted me to give up. I'm like, are you kidding? I love pizza. I'm not giving that up. He said, Eric, 30 days. 30 days. I said, okay, 30 days. So if you find somebody who's getting the results you want, be willing. Be willing to just try it for, a month or 3 months or something like that. Yeah, exactly. Like Kurt's written there. I don't know if you guys see the comments, but, Kurt used to just love ice cream. And one of the strategies here, we said, hey, you want to really eliminate or dramatically reduce your intake of dairy products. So A, he was willing to do that, but B, the way we do it in our program, he never missed it. And that's obviously key to making stuff happen. Because the strategies are not simply about what you should eat and what you shouldn't eat. The strategies are how do you increase the foods that you want to eat, and how do you decrease the foods you don't want to eat when you actually do want to eat them. So those strategies are also psychological. Then that leads us to item number 4, and that is learn how to create and break habits and rituals. So for example, there are certain foods right now that are not part of your life that really should be. So how can we make them habits for you? Well, one issue is if you were to take all the green vegetables that you should eat in a day and put them on a plate, it would be like a mountain. And so that would be a really hard habit to create because, man, that would take a lot of time and a lot of chewing, and it would take forever. Whereas, one of the ways you might be able to create that habit or that ritual is to get into blending, into making smoothies. So you could take all that spinach and kale and wonderful green stuff and put it into a smoothie, and that might make it easier for you to create that habit or ritual. And so it's really important to learn how to, first of all, create great habits and rituals, but also how to break the ones that are non-supportive. That is to say, how do you move away from some of the foods that you want to move away from, either reducing them or eliminating them completely. And then lastly, item number 5, you really want to improve your social environment and peer group. If you're going out and hanging out with people that drink their faces off and eat pizza all the time, it's going to be really tough necessarily for you to be able to pull away from those things. And so I'm not saying you have to say goodbye to those friends, but what I am saying is what you want to start to do is say hello. is say hello to some of the people out there that might be able to really kind of, you know, help you, that might be able to, you know, kind of support you in making those things happen. People that are living the health principles that you really want to live and make things happen in a really positive way. And that will help you a great deal, having the right people and the right structure around you. So with that said, I want to give you a way of making that happen for you. Because I am really, you know, look, I'm so privileged that I get to travel all over the world and teach business and marketing and help entrepreneurs all over the place. But one of the big truths in my life is that I do that largely to introduce people to stronger health principles. Almost half of all of our business clients end up going through our health programs because, you know, they see me on tour traveling around the world. They see me teach a seminar for 4 or 5 days in a row where I'm speaking for 8, 10, 12 hours a day, and I've got all this energy, and they go, well, how can I get that energy? And so one of the things that we decided to do was create a system and a formula for totally introducing people to how, to both aspects, to what they should be doing more of and what they should be doing less of, and how to create the behavioral change that they really need to create. And so the way we do that is through something we call the WildFit Challenge. And the WildFit Challenge is a 90-day opportunity for you to transform your life. It's a phenomenal way for you to start 2015 and really have a different outcome from the entire year. And so the way the WildFit Challenge works is we use Google Hangouts just like this, and they're live, and also we have video education as well. And so our clients, when they're going through the challenge, they get videos from me all the way through the 90-day challenge on different distinctions and different changes they want to make and different refinements they want to make as they're moving through the challenge. But they also get coaching from me or one of our WildFit coaches that are able to support them through the 90-day process. And the way the process is built is it's one of the things I'm most proud of because we've structured it in a way that makes it really easy. In other words, at no time in the 90 days should you ever be hungry. At no time in the 90 days should you ever miss a food. If there's a food that you've reduced or cut down, it's going to be because you wanted to. And so I'm really proud of the way we created this program because it has exactly the right balance of introducing you to a new nutritional lifestyle or the human diet and behavioral change. And that is how to create the habits you need to support the lifestyle that's going to create for you the health you really want so that you can, you know, spend time with your friends and family and be healthy so you can put your maximum energy into your business or professional life so that you can stop being sick, so that you can have so you don't have to feel tired in the afternoons, and so that your immune system is fully supported. And so I am really, really proud of the program. And so what I want to do is I want to give you guys, if you take a look at that, if you take a look at the URL that we've placed in that slide there, and I'm going to see if I can actually pop that to you. I believe that I can in the chat window here. Okay, here we go. Sorry, I thought it was pre-programmed. It's not, but it's coming right up. And then what I want you to do is, those of you who are in the chat area, this is a great time if you've got any questions about your plan for 2014 or 2015, how you can make this stuff work for you, any ideas about what you should or shouldn't be eating that you would like help with. And I am here to answer your questions. So please go ahead and pop them. If you would like any information about WildFit, if you would like our Alkagizer recipes, or if you'd like one of our people to get in touch with you, then please go ahead and click the link that I've pinned at the top of the chat area, and then we will get the information to you. And here we go. So, and then let's go to you guys down in the window. So, Naya, Kurt, Jan, if you've got any questions, just let me know, and I'd love to take them live. And I'm just now checking the chat area to see. Okay, so I've got a question in here in the chat area, and Jan, Kurt, and Naya, if you've got stuff, just raise your hands, and I'll see it on the camera, and I'll come to you. If we look here, Lindsay says, is there a full session on sugar, as I have a friend who is addicted? He has 5 sugars in every cup of tea. Lindsay, wow. You know what? I am absolutely up for doing that. I don't have one in our schedule right now, but let me address a little bit about sugar right now. the fact is that most people have a degree of sugar addiction. Some people have it really intensely, especially if they have what we call a sweet tooth. Unfortunately, the difficulty is that you knowing your friend has a sugar addiction doesn't really help them as much as them knowing they have a sugar addiction. What I can tell you is this, is it can be broken. There's absolutely no question about it. We're designed for that addiction to be broken. What I mean by that is that when we go through, like for example, the sugar season or the fruit season, what's meant to happen is that we have, when the fruit goes away, all of a sudden the sugar's gone. And so yes, we might have withdrawal and the addiction might be there and it might be emotionally challenging for us for a time, but it wouldn't be useful for that addiction to stay if there was no sugar around, and so it would go away. And so my experience is that one of the best things that people can do is do a 2-week to a month no sugar fast. But by sugar, this is what makes it a little bit difficult. By sugar, to really make it work properly, that means really the elimination of most carbohydrates. So it means like no sugar, no bread, no wheat, no no potatoes, nothing that is processed as sugar by the body. And if you can go 2 weeks without it, then you'll be amazed that you don't want it after that 2 weeks. It doesn't mean you can never have it again. It means that you have more control over the relationship. So I hope that helps a little bit, Lindsay. And if you've got a follow-up, please let me know. Naya, do you want to ask you? Okay, I can answer you. Naya, I've lost the question off the screen. Can you unmute yourself and ask the question with me live here? Okay, Naya, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly.
Yeah, I forgot what kind of carbs can we eat because I've been on no sugar period for a long time, so I forgot.
Yes. Well, again, this is a relatively complex conversation, but with some simple ideas. The natural carbs that we would have encountered naturally in nature, there are some that we would have encountered. Like, for example, honey. We would have encountered honey from time to time. I've been with the Bushmen when we find a beehive. Let me tell you, there's some serious celebration going on. So that tells me it's not something that happens on a regular basis. It's not like they're eating honey every day and triggering their pancreas to produce tons of insulin every day. But when they do find one, they are serious about it. They will cut the tree open to get the honey out of that tree. And so honey is one of the carbs that humans can have from time to time. We've got an evolutionary relationship with honey that dates back millions of years. Also, root vegetables. And by root vegetables, I want to be clear right now, I'm not talking about potatoes, but I'm talking about many of the other root vegetables that you might encounter, and including, for example, yams and carrots and other things along those lines that have carbs in them. Also, fruit. Fruit is absolutely a carb that's acceptable to have seasonally. And that's the key thing with any of the carbs, is that we're meant to have them seasonally. These diets that say, no more sugar, low carb forever, what they're missing is that humans have evolved to live in a seasonal rotation. That is to say that there are times when carbs are available plentifully, and there are times where they're not so available. And so, for example, fruit comes into season, we eat lots of fruit. Fruit's out of season, we don't have it available to us. We now have to have the self-control to put ourselves through seasons like that. So, for example, to just choose not to have fruit, even though it's around everywhere, and then to go, oh, okay, now I'm going to have fruit again. And so, Naya, those are some of the carbs that we can eat. I'll also include in there like wild and brown rice from time to time. I certainly wouldn't consider it fully WildFit approved or Paleolithic from a paleo perspective. It just appears that for the most part it doesn't have a significantly negative consequence when it's eaten on occasion. Whereas potatoes, on the other hand, that come from South America, potatoes are so unbelievably new to human digestion that we just really can't cope with them. And so, if you know anybody who's having like lots of migraine headaches, then potatoes are a great place to start. Get rid of those, and often you can have phenomenal results in that area. And also, let's bear in mind that one nice rule is this, is that if a food has to be cooked in order to make it edible, then probably it's not the best idea. If it has to be cooked in order to be edible, it's probably not the best idea, because cooking is a relatively new activity. That's not to say you can't cook stuff. It's just saying if a food has to be cooked in order for you to eat it, like potatoes, you can't eat them raw. So if you can't eat something raw, probably it's not going to be a WildFit approved food item. But let's use broccoli as another example. we can definitely eat broccoli raw. It's hard, it's pretty dense, but you can eat it raw. Now, you might prefer to cook it or steam it, but I'm going to suggest that the more raw it is, the more nutritionally helpful it is to you. Now, I have to tell you, I actually don't like raw broccoli very much. What I like to do is put my broccoli in the steamer and frighten my broccoli with the steam. Just frighten it gently. And that softens it a little bit, and then I can have my broccoli. I find it easier to chew. So, Naya, I hope that answers your question a little bit there. Yeah, Lindsay, sorry, Naya, go ahead.
I just say thank you.
You're very welcome. Martin, you're very welcome. I appreciate your feedback. Feel free to share the recording with your friends. I'm really out here. A big part of my mission is this health revolution, is to help people turn this stuff around, and it really can be done today. So I really appreciate your feedback, and that's great. The question about the smoothie. If you click on the URL that I put, it says admin notice. If you click on that URL and register there, you're going to get an immediate response back, and we're going to send out the Alka-Geyser recipes to you and some other general information about WildFit in case you're curious. If any of you are interested in WildFit and would like to join the program with us, we've got 4 spots available still for January, and then our next set of classes, because they're live and we run them on because they take 90 days, the next batch of classes will start in May, and we have right now 16 spots available in May. If you would like to know more about WildFit, or you'd like to talk to somebody about WildFit, also please click the link up there and fill out the form, and we'll definitely get in touch with you. Now, guys, officially speaking, I've gone over time. I know it's bad practice with webinars to go over time. I said it would be an hour. We're now at an hour and 15. So officially speaking, the webinar is over. I really want to thank you guys for being here, and I'm going to just stick around and answer questions for a bit. So now it's all casual and it's just chat time. So Alexander says, what should you eat at winter? Well, Alexander, let's think about this. Winter is a season that and I want to be clear what we mean about these seasons. Is that I'm not talking about the seasons that you and I, certainly in the Northern Hemisphere, have gotten used to, your 4 clear-cut seasons, and they last for a specific period of time, and it's snowing at this time, and so on. Our evolution largely took place in Africa, and the seasons there are not quite as cut and dry. And so what winter season is all about is often a very dry season. In other words, there's very little water, there's very little plant life. And so it's really challenging to even find food. And so the natural thing that probably would have happened quite a lot in winter is hunger. Fasting, not intentionally, but nature-induced fasting, hunger, and binging on the occasional, like, oh, look, we were lucky enough to get ourselves an elephant today. And so winter is not a season that most people will voluntarily go into. I will say, however, that our bodies were designed for occasional fasting. In fact, most religions on the planet have fasting as part of their habits and part of their rituals. And so fasting actually, it has a basis in nature, and that is that when an animal goes into a period of fasting or a period of no food around, for the first day or so, it actually becomes weaker because its blood sugar gets low. But once the body recognizes that it's not getting dietary blood sugar, it starts burning fat reserves. And so when it starts burning fat reserves, you stop actually feeling so hungry. And for any of you who have ever gone a fast, you'll know, day 1, terrible. Day 2, even worse. Day 3 might be the turnaround point. And often in day 3, certainly by day 4, people experience a huge burst of energy because their body has now started burning fat. And what's going on in the meantime is that the entire digestive system, the pancreas and the stomach and the kidneys and the liver and everything is getting a total break. It's getting a total rest, and it's getting repair. And so that is a really natural healthy function. And so I believe that winter for us should involve fasting from time to time. And that, so I hope that answers your question, Alexander. Thank you very much for asking. What else do we have here for questions? I'm just scrolling along here. Yes, a bunch of you have asked this. Is the webinar recorded? Yes, absolutely, it's recorded. If you're registered and you're watching through the registration system, you will get a link to the recording. If you're not registered and you're just watching this live out on YouTube somehow, I'll post the recording link on my Facebook page, or actually on the Get WildFit Facebook page when the whole webinar is done and it's uploaded to YouTube. So it's definitely recorded. Feel free to share it with your friends. I just want to get this information out there to everybody. Joe, I'm coming to your question now. A lot of carbs are used to fill us up. Bread, pasta, potatoes. What can we use as a substitute? Just brown rice? You know what? Boy, Joe, this is such a great question, and it's really key, and it's a little bit of an involved conversation. So humans have a bunch of, and Kurt, I'm coming to your question next. Humans have a bunch of different types of hunger they experience. We don't know this. We think of them as hunger. But I want to kind of break down what these hungers are like for you. One of them is nutritional hunger, and that is that when you're malnourished, you will feel hungry. In other words, if your body's going, there's vitamins and minerals that are missing right now, and I need some, then that will get communicated to your body as hunger, and so you'll want to eat. The problem is that the vast majority of people in the Western world are overfed and undernourished. In other words, they're eating too much food, but they're not getting enough nutrients, and so their body keeps triggering the feeling of hunger. So that's one type of hunger. Joe, trust me, I'm coming to your answer. The other type of hunger that humans have is something called thirst. And that's because traditionally speaking, when we think back to our Bushmen, the fact is that a huge amount of the water intake that people would have came from the foods that they were eating. So in other words, a lot of the food they ate was water-rich food, plant-based foods, fruits and vegetables. And so a huge amount of the water we would get would come from the food we ate. We didn't have containers. I mean, that's a fairly new idea of having containers to transport water. So we couldn't just keep running back to the river and drinking water all the time. So a huge amount of our water came from the food that we ate. And so as a consequence, when you get a little dehydrated, your body will communicate hunger. Problem is the vast majority of the food people eat today is not water rich. So they're thirsty, their body communicates that thirst as hunger, they go eat food that doesn't have water in it, which requires water to process it, and now they're even more dehydrated. And that's why the vast majority of people in the Western world are right now dehydrated. And so that's another type of hunger that people have. But Joe, for your question, there's another type of hunger, and it's called empty stomach hunger. Now this is a fascinating kind of hunger because you see, the human stomach is a fascinating device. It's a really neat device. It's like a transformer. If you know the movie The Transformers, it's like a transformer. You see, the stomach in natural size is probably about the size of your fist, right? And so the problem is, or the great news is about the stomach is designed to be able to expand when there is an abundance of food. So when there's a huge abundance of food, your stomach expands. So for example, Joe, you and I were walking through the bush in Africa together 100,000 years ago. We stumble upon a beautiful tree full of sugar or sour plums. By the way, let me tell you about sour plums in South Africa. Oh my God. They're a totally wild berry. They're about the size of I guess they're about the size of a small plum. You squeeze it out of its peel, pop it in your mouth, and it's like 1,000 times more sour than the sour candies that we used to get as kids. And then once you get through that sour feeling, it's then 1,000 times more sweet than sugar. It's one of the most pleasurable foods you could ever eat. It's weird. But you pop a few of these into your mouth. Now what happens is that sugar creates the desire for more food, and so you keep eating. Even though your stomach is now full, your body goes, oh, sugar makes me hungry, and so you eat more, 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 and your stomach stretches to increase its capacity because the fruit is only going to be here for a short time, and your body desperately wants to survive through winter. So your stomach expands dramatically in size in order to give you the capacity to eat all the food you're supposed to be getting. Another scenario is that, oh look, we've gone out hunting and we've killed ourselves a big antelope or an elephant or a mammoth or something. And so now there's all this fresh meat lying around. Well, guess what? We don't have a deep freezer. You know, we don't have a fridge. And so we got to eat everything we can now because in a day or so it's going to go off and it's going to be rotten and the hyenas are going to come and get it anyway. And so what we do is we eat some, but if our stomach's only this big, we'll only eat this much meat. That's not useful. We need to eat as much of it as possible so that we don't starve later when there's no food. So our stomach once again expands. Then, after the fruit is gone, or after we've digested all the meat, our stomach slowly shrinks back down to its normal size. Now, Joe, the reason for your question is that most people in the Western world, their stomach is distended constantly. Their stomach is at full size constantly. And so it's very easy for the stomach to feel empty. And that's why we require filler foods. That's why we like our carbs so much. Because wheat, pasta, potatoes that are so tough to digest, we put them down in our stomach, they're really hard to digest, so they stay in our stomach for way too long, and they give us a feeling of fullness, even though we stay hungry. They give us a feeling of fullness, and so we'll eat more. You ever wonder why restaurants, as a kid, I was always blown away that restaurants serve bread. Why on earth are they serving bread? Because if they serve us bread for free, we're going to order less food. But it turns out it's exactly the opposite. The people who eat the bread are the same people who order dessert. The people who don't order the bread don't order dessert. Because when you eat bread, when you eat wheat, what happens is your stomach does get all full and distended, but your nutritional measurement shows no nutrients in the blood, and so you want to keep eating. And so your stomach stretches even more. And so the next day, your stomach, once it's processed all that stuff, your stomach is sitting there empty, and you're feeling like you're hungry. Now you eat a salad, and you go, it just wasn't very satisfying because your stomach is really full. And so one of the best things you can do is to fast occasionally and let your stomach shrink back down to its normal size, so that then when your stomach is at normal size, Joe, I don't know if you've ever fasted, but you probably, if you try it one day, and if you have fasted, you'll remember that the day after a 3, 4, 5, 7, or 10, or 20-day fast, the day after that, when you sit down to eat your first meal, you can't eat very much because your stomach gets full really easily because it's small. Now, that said, if you are going to eat, if you do want some filler foods at times, a couple of ideas are: one, drink a nice tall glass of water before your meal. It'll actually give you a sense of fullness before you start eating. But I mean a good 5 to 10 minutes before. You don't want the water in there with your food. You want it to go in before. The other thing is yes, of course, you can eat a certain amount of brown rice from time to time, and yams, sweet potatoes, carrots, and these kind of slightly more starchy foods can definitely act as fillers. So you can do it. I really want to suggest to you that the very best thing you can do is to let your stomach shrink down to normal size, and then you won't need so much filler. So I hope that answered your question. Guys, I'm going to go to Kurt, and then I think we're going to wrap it up at that stage. Kurt, go ahead and let me know what your question is. You're live.
Yes, actually you answer one question about wheat, but I have next one. So,
okay.
Question for you is actually, I know when I did this 90 days program, then I noticed there wasn't no dropout at people. What is your statistical says about dropout people and how they continue with that lifestyle?
Kurt, that's a really nice question. I appreciate your answering it or asking it. We've been shocked, frankly, that the level of dropout that we have of people doing the WildFit Challenge is just about nil. In fact, what we've noticed is that the only people we have occasionally, when somebody's had specific health challenges, or at some of our seminars, maybe we've given away a prize or something like that. And the only time we've ever had people drop out of the program is when we've given it to them as a scholarship or as a prize. Otherwise, we have almost no dropout. People start the program and they finish the program. That in itself shocked me a great deal because most people start diets and don't ever really stick with them. And so we've constructed the program in a way that makes it so damn easy that people, and also there's such strong community support because we're meeting as a team on a regular basis, and we put all the WildFit people, as you know, into their private Facebook groups so they become community and team. But Kurt, what shocked me even more is the clients after the WildFit Challenge. They really tend to stay on a WildFit kind of lifestyle. They don't seem to fall off the program afterward, and that is because their knowledge about nutrition has become so solid that they've got a really good sense of the truth of the human diet. But more than that, their behavior has actually been altered. In other words, it's hard for them to go back to the their old way of doing things. Naya, I appreciate that comment. Naya's just written, she finished the program months ago and she's still on WildFit for today. and you know, that's just really consistent with our clients. In fact, I was having a conversation with one of our clients. He was one of our very, very first WildFit clients from like 2 years ago, and he was really dealing with a lot of weight issues, and he lost about 100 pounds, or I think it was 95 pounds or something, in the 3 months he was on the program. And then I was talking to him more recently, and he said, Eric, I feel kind of bad. I had all this stress in my life, and I kind of fell off the program a little bit. And I said, that's a shame, you know. And in the past, because he's had weight problems, he's lost weight and gained weight, lost weight and gained weight, lost weight and gained weight all the time. And I said, I'm sorry to hear that. You know, did you put the weight back on? He goes, no. I didn't put any back on. I'm still down. I lost 100 pounds. He just said, I just didn't keep losing. Well, I got to tell you, if that's our failure, I'll take it, because that 100 pounds is a massive increase in his quality of life and his longevity, and it means he's still on the road to success. He just needs to tweak a few things to get himself back on the road to success. So yeah, we've had some really, really phenomenal results. Jan, if you want to unmute yourself, we can chat if you're up for it.
Hello?
Hi, Jan, go ahead.
Yes, I'm here. Yeah.
Where are you coming to us from?
I'm from Norway.
Norway, good news. So go ahead.
So I just want to know, it's very interesting to listen to you today, because I have a little bit problem. I have 2 kids I have to take care of, but I will watch it again, over again. But if I want to join in January or May, how much does it cost to do it, the program?
Jan, you know what I'm going to do, because of all the different currencies, you know, we've got Norwegian kroner and Swedish kroner and Estonian, I can't even remember, I think euros, and we've got the South African rand, and we've got all kinds of people from all over the world. Just click the link that we put in the chat area, and we're going to send out the information, and we'll send you the pricing and all those details, and we'll do that way instead of making this a big sales webinar. Is that cool?
That is cool. Do I get it in like email?
Yeah, you'll get an email straight back from us if you click that link and fill out the form.
Okay, thank you.
Sounds good. Somebody from Norway will actually get back to you directly, and they'll give you pricing in Norwegian kroner.
Very good. Very great to listen to today.
Oh, you're very welcome. Good to have you. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
Couple other notes here. I just got a note. Some of you will see it in the live chat from Paul Coker. He did the program 2 years ago, Still Living WildFit for Today. And you know, he's a really great example for any of you who are concerned about diabetes. And if you're a little overweight, you should be concerned about diabetes. They're now predicting that I think something like 1/3 of the children born after the year 2000 will be diabetic by the time they're 16 years old in the U.S. This is going to be the biggest health crisis that we're going to see. I mean, don't be worried about Ebola. Be worried about diabetes. And so Paul is a real expert in the world. He's a type 1 diabetic, and he did our program and immediately managed to take himself from there to running a half marathon. He went on to go climb Kilimanjaro. Then he ran another half marathon and really figured out a solid way of doing the best he could to control his blood sugar levels using the WildFit program. And he's become a real advocate of ours, and he's helping us develop WildFit for diabetic specific programs. So Paul, thanks very much for your note there. Last note for everybody. I do these webinars from time to time, and I love it, and so keep an eye on the Get WildFit Facebook page. Real easy to get to. It's facebook.com/getwildfit, and if you go like the page, you'll get our updates, and you'll know when we're doing webinars in the future. In the meantime, as I said, if you click the link that's put in the chat bar there, and we're going to email it to you again afterward anyway. Click that link if you would like a copy of the Alkagizer recipes, or if you would like information about WildFit for you locally, or anything like that. Just fill out that form, and we'll definitely get back in touch with you. And if you've got any more questions at all, pop them on our Facebook page. I will answer them as best I can over the next couple days, and I want to get you the answers you need, and I want to help you achieve your health goals. I hope you've found this entertaining and fun. I really enjoy it. It's, as I said before, it's a great privilege to me that I can connect with so many of you in all the different countries that you guys are around the world, and I'm here in my own house, in my own living room. And I know some of you are from northern climes, and I know it's a little chilly, so I feel mildly guilty telling you that within about half an hour I'm going to be kiteboarding right out there on that beach. But I only feel a little guilty about that. Thank you guys so much for your time and attention. If you want to find out more, click the link, fill out the form. like our Facebook page, and keep an eye out for our future webinars. Thanks so much for being with us. Have a great holiday season and a great new year. Thank you.